today we have Tracie Miller-Nobles. She's a CPA and an associate professor at Austin Community College. She teaches introductory financial and managerial accounting, individual income tax, and tax research in both traditional and online formats. She has a teaching experience at community college and the university level. Professor Miller-Nobles received her master's degree in accounting from Texas A&M University and is working on her doctoral degree in adult education, also from Texas A&M University. And she's working, no, I just said that. Sorry guys. Her research interests include financial literacy education, adult learning theories, and online learning. She has public accounting experience with Deloitte Tax LLP. Professor Miller-Nobles is on the board of directors for the American Accounting Association as director focusing on members. She has served in leadership roles for the AAA's teaching, learning, and curriculum section and AAA's 2-year college section, and was a member of Pathways Communication on Accounting Higher Education. Professor Miller-Nobles is also on the board of directors for teachers of accounting at 2-year colleges, and as a secretary webmaster, she's an active member as an AICPA Financial Literacy Committee. At the state level, she serves on the relations with educational institutes for the Texas Society of the Certified Public Accountants. She has received teaching and professional awards, including the AAA J. Michael and Mary Ann Cook Prize, the TSCPA Outstanding Accounting Educator, the TSCPA Rising Star, and the TSCPA Austin Chapter CPA of the Year. In her spare time, she enjoys time with her husband and his 3 kids, Caleb, Josh, and Maggie, her parents, Kip and Sylvia, and sister Michelle. She believes that camping and hiking is restorative and calming, and that life was meant for good friends and great adventures. Tracie has She has been mentored by many wonderful colleagues and inspired by her students. So let's give a round of applause for her.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you guys today. I think Shelby was instrumental. We have never met before, but my mother knows Shelby's mother, so that's how I got here today. So I'm really excited to talk to you. What I'm going to talk a little bit about is who I am. You heard a little bit about that, but I'm going to talk about some key points in my career that have gotten me to where I'm at today. I'm going to talk about the power of licensure. So we're going to talk about why I think you should get a CPA license, or a CMA license, or a CFA license, or a CIA license, or some type of license that goes behind your name. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the PhD. I think I had wished that someone would have talked to me about that when I was in my undergrad, to let me know that there was an opportunity to do the things that your professors do, to be in the classroom and teach future accounting students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you become a professor and what are the different roles for that. And then I'm going to spend most of my time talking about the values of relationships, because when I was given your career, what is it called? Character map, thank you. When I was given the character map, and I looked at it and I thought, okay, which of these characteristics got me to where I'm at today? And I believe wholeheartedly that relationships, the relationships that I built and the relationships that I nurtured and created, got me to the point where I'm at today. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to build relationships, where do you find relationships at, how do you maintain relationships. We're going to do a little practice at our table about how to interact with people. So this is an interactive discussion today. If you need to leave, you can. So we'll do that. Okay, so as you heard, I took a very traditional career path. I grew up here in Coppers Cove, actually, so I'm a Coppers Cove High School graduate. I went to Texas A&M. I thought I wanted to study engineering, and then I took my first engineering class, and I was like, this is a nightmare, and I don't want to study this hard, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I just happened to take an accounting class, and it was like that moment where I thought, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And so I immediately switched my degree to accounting, and that was it for me. And I wasn't a great student, really, to be very honest with you. I mean, I got a C in Intermediate Accounting 1, absolutely. That was my only C I got in accounting, and I'll never forget I was at a job interview, and the interviewee asked me about my C. He said, I see on your transcript that you received a C in Intermediate Accounting. Tell me about that. And I thought, I don't know. You know, it was the summer, and I wasn't studying very much. So you should be prepared for that. You think they may not ask you about that, but you maybe need to have an answer for that C that you maybe got in Intermediate Accounting. So I went on, A&M has a 5-year program where you can do your undergrad and your master's degree in 5 years. So I did the 5-year program, I went through the master's program, and I love taxes. Anybody in here wants to do taxes when they get out? Okay, awesome. I'm always depressed because it's only 1% of the class that wants to do taxes. But I love taxes, that's what I did. I thought auditing was super boring. I have friends who think auditing is incredible. I have friends who love financial intermediate accounting. I just loved tax. And so I got out and I worked at Deloitte Tax, and I did high wealth individuals. I did the tax returns for the gentleman who invented the sticker that went on the fruit. You probably have never thought about that. Someone invented that sticker that went on the piece of fruit. And I will tell you, he has made $1 bazillion from that sticker. Like, he has a house in Aspen, he's got a house in the Caribbean. I mean, it's crazy. So high wealth individuals, lots of 1040 work, partnerships and S corporations, because those partnerships and S corporations feed into those high wealth individuals. So we would always start with the business entities, and then we would always do the individuals that flowed off of those business entities. Large international corporations, I'll never forget when I worked at Deloitte in Dallas, we were pitching a client to try to get their business. And the business was, I had never heard of it before, but it was these vacuum cleaners that you didn't have to vacuum, right? It was these automatic vacuum cleaners. And I remember saying to my manager at the time, no one is gonna buy one of those vacuum cleaners. Like, they're gonna vacuum their house. Like, why would they buy a vacuum cleaner? That someone does. Okay, does anyone know the company Roomba? Right? Thankfully, I wasn't in charge of that account. Because that eventually became one of our clients, and that was a client that I worked on. One of the things I loved about working for Deloitte is that it gave me the opportunity to work on a lot of different experiences. So I worked on everything from individuals to huge international corporations. I did partnerships and S corporations. I got to do trust and estates. I just got to see a lot of different things. And that's the real value of working in public accounting, is that you get to see a lot of different things and you get an idea about what you like and what you don't like. Now, for me, working at Deloitte was also a ton of time and energy. So as we know, public accounting firms, and especially the big ones like Deloitte, require a lot of time out of their employees, and things have gotten better, but there's still a lot of big time investment. That's actually why I went to the firm on the left, which is called Sample & Bailey's. Sample & Bailey is a regional accounting firm. I lived in Colorado, and they're a regional accounting firm. It's a great place to have a career at, is any of our regional accounting firms. So I think Novogradac was here last time around. They'll give you a really similar experience to something that you would get at like a Deloitte, but at a bit of a more manageable work level, experience, more opportunity to grow in your profession faster than you would have at a big public accounting firm. And so when I worked at Sample & Bailey, I did still a lot of high wealth individuals, but I also got to realize that, hey, not everybody has a private jet that has their tax returns done. And so I did moderate, we had school teachers and, the pastors and the people in the community's tax returns. I also did a lot of small businesses. So before, when I worked at Deloitte, I had never seen a Schedule C. I took tax, I saw at A&M, I saw a Schedule C, but when I worked at Deloitte, I'd never seen a Schedule C before. And so when I went to Tampa and Bailey, we did a lot of Schedule Cs. I remember one of my first clients was a tattoo artist there in Fort Collins, where I lived. And we had farmers, a lot of farmers, and lots of different variety. And it just built that wealth of experience that I had in my portfolio of things that I did. And of course, still lots of small businesses, partnerships, S Corps. So this is everywhere where I've taught. The transition for me to go from working at a professional accounting job to teaching was a natural transition for me. So when I worked at Deloitte, I was regularly asked to give presentations to my colleagues, to lead trainings on new areas of taxation, and I loved it. That was one of the best. It was like when I got to do that, I loved that aspect of my job. And so the more and more I thought, I really want to give back to the accounting profession. I want to encourage all of you out there to realize that accounting is this awesome job. And so I thought it would be natural for me to move into a teaching role. And so I took probably a very different approach than most of your professors here took, because I don't have a doctorate in accounting. And your professors that are here in this room, they have a doctorate in accounting or business, I would guess. And so I took a very different approach to how I wanted to teach. And I started teaching at Ames Community College in Colorado, and I taught that intro, financial, managerial accounting course. I taught QuickBooks, all those kind of paraprofessional accounting classes, and I loved it. I think, though, the only reason I got hired was because they needed someone to teach tax, and I think no one else applied for the job. Because I had no experience at all teaching, other than the little bit that I had done at Deloitte and Sample and Bailey's. So lucky enough, you'll realize that when you look back on your career, that sometimes you just get lucky. And that's kind of what I felt like in that situation, was I was in the right place at the right time, with the right skills, with the right educational background, and I just got lucky. And so I lucked into this teaching career, and it's been something that I've never left. So now I teach at Ames Community College. I've taught at University of Texas, Austin. I taught at Texas State University. I'm teaching right now at UC Berkeley, doing some extension work for them. I love teaching. It's just something that I walk in the classroom every day, and it's one of the best jobs that I could ever have. In part of that teaching is I had the opportunity to do some development for a curriculum. And so I have written an accounting textbook for Cengage. Maybe you guys know that publishing house. And then most recently, my biggest project to date is the textbook that I write for Pearson. And that's used at the financial and managerial accounting level. And the textbooks that I write would never have happened if I hadn't had a solid educational background, the licensure behind my name, and the relationships that I had created at all of the institutions and employers that I had been at. That would have never happened for me if I hadn't have been building all of those relationships as I go along. And so then this picture over here on the left, you heard in my bio that I was recently awarded the J. Michael and Mary Ann Cook Prize. That's given by the American Accounting Association. It's an international prize, and to give you a value on that prize, that prize comes with a $25,000 award. So it's a substantial prize that recognizes faculty that are doing great things in the accounting classroom. That prize would have never come without the educational background that I have, the licensure that I have, and the people who helped me get along the way to get there. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about how did a girl from Copperscope, Texas, who had never been out of the United States, have the opportunity to take her education that she was lucky enough to get, and then have the opportunity to travel to China and get to talk to faculty about accounting profession and how to promote the accounting profession. So the first piece, I think, is licensure. Whatever licensure you decide is the best licensure. You have to get something behind your name that's going to certify that you know what you're talking about, especially today, because bachelor's degrees are becoming a dime a dozen, and master's degrees are getting to there. And so you need to set yourself out to being something different than what other people are who have the same degree as you have. And in my opinion, I believe that comes from licensure. So I think when we think about accounting perspectives, we usually talk about two main licensures. We talk about the Cpa Licensure and we talk about the Cma Licensure. So I'm a CPA because I'm a tax person. I came through a traditional role in public accounting where we were encouraged and essentially forced to get our CPA license. And I am not a managerial accountant at all. I've never worked in industry. That's not anything that I've ever done. So I've never pursued my CMA. Now I have a lot of colleagues who are only CMAs, who they're not CPAs at all, they're only CMAs, and that's because that's where their career route went. So we tend to hear CPA as being the kind of quintessential license, and it's probably the more recognized licensure of the other licenses, but you should think about what you're gonna do and where you're gonna go and what's gonna be the best licensure for you. So there is value in the CPA. I just pulled some potential statistics for you. So 10 to 15% higher salaries if you have the licensure behind your name. Better job opportunities. I have students in our professional accounting program who have bachelor's degrees in accounting and are coming back to get their CPA courses so they can take the exam because they can't advance in their career anymore until they get CPA behind their name. So career advancement will open you up. Having the CPA will open you up to a tremendous career advancement. Then also growth. There's some talk about what careers are going to be here in 30 years from now, and accounting is not going away. It's certainly going to look different with data analytics and robotics and artificial intelligence, and all those types of things are going to change what accounting looks like, but I believe that there will always be, and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that we're going to continue to have steady growth in accounting, so you can't go wrong with this degree. So most of you probably already know this, but just sort of a reminder, in order to get that CPA, you got to have those 4 E's, right? So we say it's education, examination, ethics, and experience. So education, what you're doing right here, the value of being here and in your accounting classes, and preparing yourself, thinking critically about preparing yourself to sit for some exam. You should take every moment that you have in your classes because you're going to need to rely on that foundation for when you get out there and you have to study on your own in order to sit for that exam. And so when I know it gets it gets dreary when you're going to class every day and you're thinking, oh, one more homework assignment, and one more exam, and one more project. But we should remember the end goal, and that is that this education here is getting you to the next D, which is examination. And so whatever exam that might be, whether you take the CPA or the CMA exam or the CIA, CFA, any of those, all of them culminate in an exam. And that's really the value of licensure, because these are not easy exams to pass. I will tell you, I took the CPA exam before you could take it one little part at a time. I took it in a big, like a big convention center. We did get to have calculators. I don't know, did you guys are either of you CPAs? Did you get a calculator?
No.
No, I can't. I don't think I would have passed if I couldn't have had a calculator. I did get a calculator, but it was paper and pencil, and we had to take all 4 parts at one time. Now when you take the exam, you just study for one part, and then you pass that, and then you move on. So the first time I took the CPA exam, I failed all 4 parts. No joke, failed all 4 parts. You have to pass with a 75. I scored between a 70 and a 75 on all 4 parts. That's the worst way to fail. Like, I mean, could I just have gotten a 30? That would have been better than scoring like a 73 on all of the 4 parts. So that was equivalent to you're smart but not smart enough. Like, that's what that meant. So I studied for it again. And then the next time I passed 2 parts. And then the 3rd time I passed another part. And then finally, what would that be? Now the 5th time I finally passed the last part. Perseverance gets you where you're going. Right? That's it. Perseverance. Not, are you smart enough? Not, you can't do this. Not, I have so many things going in my life, I can't handle this. Perseverance. Knowing the end goal, which for me was the examination, and getting there. It took me 5 times, and I did it. And no one ever asked me that. I never got that on an interview. How many times did it take you to pass the CPA exam? Thankfully, I've never had to answer that. But I would answer that with a statement about, but let me tell you, I persevered, right? I persevered, I didn't give up. So examination. After that, you have to do the ethics. If you're going to be a CPA in Texas, if you're going to be a CPA in any state, you have to take that ethics exam. That's probably, I think, the easiest part of the whole part, not because ethics isn't important, but because it's like a take-home test. You know, you get the test, and then you look the rules up, and then you answer the test, and then you submit it. So it's a little less stressful. And then you have to have experience. So I think, who was talking about experience earlier? It was you. Yeah. So we were talking about experience with your professors, and so you have to have, they say, 1 year of full-time experience. If you work part-time, they can work with you on how long that takes and what that part-time requirements look like. And you have to work directly under a licensed CPA. And for some students, like my students, that's sometimes the hardest part for them, is that they're working in the accounting area, but sometimes they're not working directly under a licensed CPA. So when you're thinking about jobs, if you want to be a CPA, that needs to be a question that you're going to ask when you're going to interview with employers. What is the opportunity for me to work under a licensed CPA? Because if you want to have the CPA, then that's what you have to do. So then I put up a bunch of other licensures up here because I think there is value in getting any kind of licensure. So the next most popular is the CMA licensure. CMA, great route, similar process, education requirements, exam requirements, ethical requirements. Yes, right, Robert? So. Yeah. And then experience, still have to have the experience. So similar process for any of these licensures. The bottom left-hand one you may not be familiar with, that's our new CGMA, Chartered Global Management Accountant. In all honesty, this is the CPA, AICPA attempt to offer a certification similar to the CMA. If I had my choice, you should, I think, in my opinion, you should do the CMA as opposed to the CGMA. The CGMA is new, super new, and a lot of people don't know about it yet. I do think some benefit to the CGMA is if you ever wanted to work internationally. I think there's some recognition with the CGMA outside of the United States. So if you're ever thinking maybe that's where you want to go, I think there's some benefit to that. Over on the right-hand side, Certified Fraud Examiner. We have a great Austin. In Austin, we're the headquarters of the Certified Fraud Examiners Association. And the Certified Fraud Examiner is a great certification to get. I would recommend you do that later in your career. So after you have a different certification, adding an additional certification is always a great idea. We make fun of some of my friends because they have like PhD, CMA, CPA, CGMA. I'm like, you just like taking tests. Like, that's like, seriously? But absolutely, you go, you get your CPA, you get your CMA, and then you start working in a specialty area, add on one of those specialty certifications. Okay. There are some great resources out there. If you haven't seen these resources, I highly recommend them. The middle one, Texas State Board of Public Accountancy, good website that kind of walks you through like the education requirements, the experience requirements. Also talks to you about how do you sign up, so filling out your letter of intent, having your transcripts reviewed, all of those things on that website. Over on the left-hand side, This Way to CPA, great website, talks about all the different kinds of accounting careers that are out there. That website's put out by the AICPA and talks about the value of being a CPA. And then the lower left-hand corner, that's Texas CPA. That's the association, in addition to the AICPA, but Texas CPA Association is probably closest to my heart because I'm a CPA. And that's another key piece of my career, is that when we start to talk about relationships, all of the relationships that I have built have been through some type of an association or organization. And so some of my best career moves have been because of someone that I met through Texas Society of CPAs or AICPA or the American Accounting Association, because that relationship helped me get to a different spot in my career. And so joining associations are important because that's where you're going to create a lot of the relationships. We have a great Austin CMA chapter, and I think that Robert talked about maybe having the possibility for them to come up here and do some, have you guys get introduced to that Austin chapter. So in your area, you guys, if you're a Texas CPA, you're probably going to want to come down to Austin and do some opportunities down there in Austin. We have a great new accountant program down in Austin. They have a lot of fun happy hours and all those types of things. And that's a really great opportunity for you guys to get hooked in there. So I'm going to talk next about kind of my alternative career path. So as I said, at this time I don't currently have a PhD. I am in the dissertation stage of my PhD, and I have heard that one day I may finish it. I will, right? Perseverance. I will finish this. So my dissertation is unique for an accounting faculty member. My dissertation is in adult education, human resource development, technically, with a specialty in adult education. I specifically chose that because I love where I'm at the community college level. I don't have any desire to teach at a university that would require me to have a PhD in accounting. And so getting a PhD was a goal of mine, like one of those weird goals we have in our lives. And so this met with the interests that I have. So I came into the accounting classroom with just a master's degree, just a master's degree and a CPA license. And if you have that type of a background with work experience, of course, you can teach at what we tend to call our smaller regional universities and our community colleges. So I started at a community college. You could teach as a clinical professor or an adjunct faculty member here. I also taught as a full clinical professor at Texas State University, and so that doesn't require the PhD. But what I really want to talk to you about is that PhD in accounting, because as I said, I wished that someone would have talked to me about that when I was in my undergrad. Because if I had known that that was an opportunity, I probably wouldn't have the career path that I have now. Because my stepkids think I'm crazy because when school gets started, I'm like, yeah, school, yes, right? I'm crazy. I love school. I just think I get excited about back to school supplies, like when they start to put them in Walmart. It's like the best thing ever for me. I know, right? It's crazy. So I would have stayed in school. I would have. That's why I'm a professor, because I never have to leave school. So if you get a PhD in accounting, then you have a whole wealth of opportunities that you can do. So I listed the Texas schools that offer, there's several more up there, but I listed the Texas schools that offer PhDs. The top two are, of course, are what we call Research One institutions. They are rigorous. They're challenging to get into. At a doctorate level, they expect their graduates to go on to Tier 1 institutions. So Texas A&M would expect their students to go to Brigham Young University, UC Stanford, those types of places. Then we have some of what I tend to call our kind of not second tier by any means, but just a different type of a PhD program. So we have schools like Texas A&M San Antonio, we have University of Texas Arlington, University of North Texas, Texas Tech really should be back up in that UT and Texas A&M area, UT Dallas, UT Arlington. They do a great job preparing PhD students. So PhDs take, if you go full-time, did you guys go full-time when you did yours? How long?
I actually did 4.
Woo, brilliant.
But I'm old, so most programs anymore at minimum of 5.
Yeah, minimum of 5. How about you, Robert?
I took the long circumambiguous route. And greater than 5.
Greater than 5, yeah. Mine, I'm going part-time in my program. It's probably gonna take me around 7 years. The big research institutions nowadays are saying that they won't get PhD students out in any less than 5 years, and on average, I think it's taking around 6 years. Most of them are full-time. Most of them are full-time. I think 99.9% of them are full-time. So you have 6 more years of school. 6 more years of school. So if you think getting a PhD may be something that you're interested, I see all of you rolling your eyes. Why is this lady talking about this? I recommend, and I think you'll be a better professor in the classroom if you go out and get some work experience and then come back into the doctorate. Professors, do you guys agree or do you feel differently?
It varies. It depends.
It depends.
Some concepts are getting heard.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I did, right? I went out and then I thought, oh my gosh, I have this goal of getting a doctorate, and so now here I am at, in my mid-40s back at school again, because education never stops, right? It never stops. So there are some differences in getting that master's with a license in teaching versus getting the PhD. So PhDs in accounting these days are earning great salaries. The starting salary for PhDs in accounting are well over $100,000. They are, now you know, sorry. They are,
We're going to drink a little more.
The average full professor, so full professor means you've been teaching for a while, you have tenure. The average full professor earned around $170,000. So PhDs in accounting are well sought after. PhDs in accounting have no problem getting jobs. Universities are looking to hire PhDs. Depending upon where you go, that starting salary is going to be very different. So a university similar to here, or some of our smaller universities are going to pay in that lower end of that range. If you're willing to do the work like you would do in a public accounting firm, you're going to get paid the higher bucks, of course. Now, on the other hand, over here on the left-hand side of the world that I live in, our community college faculty, our non-tenure track clinical faculty, we make an average somewhere around $60,000 or so. Okay, so you can see the power of education right here in this slide, right? The power of education not only gets you these 3 letters behind your name, but also gives you the advantage of earning some more in the career path that you are. Before I move on, do you guys have questions about the PhD? Anybody have any questions about the PhD route? I'm not selling anyone. I'm being a professor today. They're like, just graduation.
2 months and 10 days.
Just graduation. So I want to spend the rest of my time with you talking to you about that statement that I made earlier. So this is Copper's Cove. Some of you may recognize that picture right there if you've been out there. And the question that I asked myself as I was preparing for this presentation was, how did that girl from Copper's Cove, who really wasn't that smart, manage to make it to Beijing, China, to give this really amazing presentation to accounting faculty over there? Like, really, how did that happen? And as I told you before, I think education makes a difference. I think my credentials make a difference. I think my perseverance makes a difference. But if you had to ask me what is the one thing that has made a difference in my career, and that is the relationships. I can point to every relationship I have and tell you the career move that it made. So for example, I started at an internship with Deloitte in Dallas. I didn't want to live in Dallas, but I took the job because that's where the job was, and I would have been happy living in Dallas. I really wanted to live in Colorado. That's really where I wanted to live in. So I did my internship. I had a great experience. I made some really great contacts. I got a job offer at the end of the internship. At that job offer time, I said, you know, I love working for Deloitte, but I really want to live in Colorado. And that manager said, let me pick up the phone and I will call the manager in Colorado and we will get you a job there. That would not have happened if I hadn't have had a good relationship and I hadn't have had all those other things, done a good job, had good education, had good work skills, all those other things. But because of that relationship and the opportunity that there was a space there for me, right? I can't fix that. But the fact that there was a space and that manager knew another manager, I was able to move to Colorado. So then I went to this conference, Teachers of Accounting at 2-year conferences, and I met these two ladies. They were one of the first ladies that I met. The lady on the left is Sheila Ammon. She's a professor at Austin Community College. The other lady is Susan Croston. She works for the American Accounting Association. And I sat in Sheila's session and I looked at her and I said, that's the lady I want to be. I want to be her. Because I was wowed by her dynamics and her thoughtfulness in the classroom and the things that she was doing, and I said, I want to be her. So I decided that I had had enough of living in Colorado and dealing with the snow and the ice, and I wanted to move to Austin. And so I had maintained a relationship with Sheila via email, and I picked up a phone and I said, hey, I really want to move to Austin. Do you have an opening? And she said, you know what? We happen to have an opening. You should apply. And I applied, I went through the job application process, and that's how I got to Austin. So then in the process of that, I kept building all these relationships, and Susan Crossan, who I always kept in contact with, said, you know, hey, I think you need to become involved in the American Accounting Association because we need more community college faculty in this association. And so I said, you know, Susan, I think that's a great idea. Let me go and get involved in that. And so then from that, I became chair of my section. I was on the nominations committee, and eventually now I'm on the board of directors. It's because of Susan Crossan, because of that. Because if I hadn't have built that relationship with her, I wouldn't have met the next people along that pathway for me. So then Susan introduced me to this gentleman here, Bruce Bain, who's probably one of my all-time mentors. Bruce is really active. He's a faculty member at University of Tennessee. He's really active in the AICPA. And Bruce said, hey, Tracie, you need to get involved in the AICPA. And I said, okay, because that's what I say when someone says, hey, you should, that I value, says, hey, you should do this. I say, okay, what do I do? And so Bruce said, you need to get involved in the AICPA. And so then I got involved. And every step made a difference for me. And so then I met this gentleman over here, Lanny Nelms, who's a community college faculty member. And at that time I was doing presentations at the 2-year college conference. And he said, hey, Tracie, you should get on the board. of tactic. And what did I say? I said, yes. Okay. So then that's what happened. And then I met this lady down here, my editor at Pearson. And she said, hey, we've seen your work at the conferences and at Tactic, and we've seen your work with AAA and the AICPA, and we hear that you're a great faculty member in the classroom, and we think that you should write a book for us. And that's how that happened. And so that's how that girl from Copperas Cove, Texas, who took 5 times to pass the CPA exam, ended up giving a presentation to faculty members in Beijing, China. Something I never thought would ever happen. It's because of the education you get in these classes, the experience that you build in your job, the credentials you have behind your name, and the relationships that you make. So relationships are hard. Relationships don't come easy. You have to work at relationships. And the first thing is, well, where do you find people? Well, you do exactly what I did. You go to different places and you identify people that you want to be like. That's what I did. And so then that person introduced me to another people. My first relationships were with my professors. I relied on them to get me into the type of employer that I wanted to work at. I relied on my classmates to help me make it through intermediate accounting, right? Those were the first relationships that I made. So then I went to my employer, and that relationship at Deloitte with my manager, who knew the manager in Denver, who could pick up the phone and make that call, that relationship was because of that employment relationship. Because that manager was willing to put their reputation out on the line for me, because I did a good job, and they were willing to say, hey, we think you should take this person. You get it through associations. I can't rely on the importance enough of associations. American Association, the AICPA, whatever niche you want to be in, there's a professional organization for that. There's a student membership right now in the Texas Society of CPAs. You can join you can be a student member for free. You get to go to all of the Austin chapter, your Central Texas chapter. You can go to all of those associations for free. Why is that different than this experience you're getting here? It's because you're beginning to build those relationships with the professionals that are out in the field, right? Working CPAs today. Conferences. As you saw in my bubble diagram, I made more connections at conferences than I've made, and associations than I've made in anything else. Local organizations, if you're going to work here in the Killeen, Temple, Waco, Copperas Cove area, you'll get some of the best professional relationships by getting involved in the local community. So Rotary, Exchange Club, there's so many service clubs that you can get involved in. And you'll never know what one of those relationships creates for you. And then you can't talk enough about volunteerism, the connections you make through volunteering. So over here in the right-hand corner, I wanted you to see that LEAP. That's our we call them young CPAs, but they're not like young age-wise, young in their profession, CPAs and potential CPAs that we have in our Austin chapter. So if you're on Facebook or on Instagram, you should follow LEAP, because they do a lot of networking events and career fairs and all sorts of different things that are designed for you guys, students and new to the profession accountants. So follow them on Instagram or Facebook. Next step, maintain a positive social profile. Right? I hope someone's come in and talked to you. Has anyone come in and talked to you about Facebook and LinkedIn and kind of that experience, right? So in my opinion, there's a couple of different important things that you can utilize, things like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and Twitter, to build your professional career. The first is that I always follow the associations and also kind of the influencers that I want to be like. So I always follow the AICPA. I always follow the Texas Society of CPAs. I always follow those kind of areas so that I know what's going on, right? So that I know, oh, hey, I have this opportunity. Oh, hey, this is going on. Oh, hey, people are talking about Bitcoins, and maybe I should figure out what a Bitcoin means, right? All of those different areas, so I'm current in the profession. I am also a big proponent of LinkedIn. And the reason why I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn is because I saw that job at UC Berkeley didn't come because of a relationship that I have. That job came because of my LinkedIn profile. And this gentleman reached out to me and said, hey, I saw your LinkedIn profile and we want you to teach for us at UC Berkeley. Could you do that? And so that's the only way I got that job. So maintaining a solid LinkedIn profile is really, really important. Even if you're not looking for a job like I wasn't, right? You know, but what do I say? Yes, right? Is this good for my career? Yes. So the other thing I think is also LinkedIn is really useful because you'll be able to hear what professionals are talking about. So this is my good friend, Dr. Scheinstein Smith, and he has gotten really big in cryptocurrencies, blockchain, which I know like this much about. But every time I see his post, I learn a little bit more about that. So if someone asks me about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, I'm knowledgeable enough that I can say something about it. Okay. So just a good way for you to get grounded. And this is a reminder, I'm not going to talk to you any more about that than that, right? Social media accounts should be grandma approved, right? That's it. That's the flat out answer to that. In my work through AAA, I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of employers, especially those big level employers like PwC and Deloitte, and they check every single one of their potential hires' social media accounts, every single one of them. And they have pulled job offers because of things they have seen on social media. So you have to clean it up. Like you have to clean it up. Or cut your privacy down, or do whatever you need to do so that it looks like something that your grandma would be happy about. And if your grandma is sassy, don't think about her. Think about right, my grandma, who not be okay with it. Okay, so here we go. This is our first little activity we're gonna get. I've talked too long, so we're gonna work on this. So one of the things I think my students find really challenging is how to introduce yourself at a networking event. So you go to an event, you maybe know a couple of people, but you're not sure about how to get the conversation started, right? How to do it. First off, you're gonna feel nervous. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I go into events now and I feel nervous, and I do this a lot. Okay, so here's some tips. Use the event. So say, oh, hey, what did you think about the keynote speaker this morning? Did you enjoy her presentation? Right, use the event. Or say, hey, I saw you in the data analytics session. What did you think about that? Are you doing that? Okay, use the event. Okay, next thing, try standard conversation starters. You're in the line, you're getting your food. Hey, that steak looks really good. Right? That seems awkward, but right? That's just something to get it started. Something to get it started,
I'm
right?
shy.
Okay. Have a good story ready. So I like to pick, I'm a big reader. I like to pick a book. And if the conversation gets quiet, I say something like, hey, have you guys read any good books lately? And then usually no one says anything because, you know, they're not crazy like I am and read a bazillion of books. And I say, you know, I read this really great book. Or maybe you go to movies. Maybe you say, hey, have you seen the latest, I don't know, Star Wars movie or whatever, right? Have a story ready. Have something ready, okay? Make a personal connection. This one I think works great. So most likely you're going to know someone in the room. And so most likely you're going to go up, like Shelby is the only person I know in this room. And I don't even really know her. I know her mom, right? So I would go up to Shelby and I would say, hey, Shelby, how are you? And I would say, you know, I saw your mom the other day, and she was great, and, you know, she's going on a cruise. Shelby's mom is going on a cruise with me. This is how weird this world is. So I said, your mom is so looking forward to the cruise. And then I would say, oh, Shelby, I would say, hey, you know, who do you know here? And then she would say, oh, hey, I know Tim. And I would say, hey, I don't know Tim, could you introduce me to Tim, right? That's kind of how that works. And then you do the same thing for Shelby, right? You say, hey, Shelby, I know Rusty. Let me take you over there and introduce you to Rusty. And then what I think is kind of awkward is how to get out of that conversation. Right? Like you're still there, talking to them. So here's how I do it. So I say, remind me of your name.
Patience.
Patience, oh God, what a great name. I say to Patience, I say, oh, Patience, have you met Brian? And then I'll say, hey, Brian, you know, Patience is a accounting student at Texas A&M Central Texas, and she's really interested in the work you're doing at Deloitte. Like, could you tell her a little bit about that? Then that conversation gets started, right? And then I silently. Because that's the key at networking events, right? I like you, Patience, but I don't want to spend the whole evening with you. If I do, I don't get to meet all you. So manage that, right? Okay, next big piece. Follow up after the event with an email. Especially if you liked the person. I should say, don't follow up if you don't like them. Especially if you feel like there's a relationship that you could get there, right? So that's what I always did. When I met Susan Croston, I grabbed her business card and I followed up and said, hey, it was so nice to meet you, Susan. You know, I really enjoyed talking about whatever we talked about. You know, I would love to stay in touch. Could that be something that we did? Okay. Okay, I want you to practice. You're going to pretend like you don't know the person next to you, and maybe you don't really know the person next to you. And so you're going to